Good morning, and welcome to this morning, this day, and this opportunity to be together in community at Cedar Lane UU Church online. I am Dr. Jasmine Lee. My pronouns are she, her, and I am one of the music coordinators serving Cedar Lane alongside my colleague, Jenny Lynn Moyer. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are joining us from, whatever your beliefs, gender identity and expression, immigration status, or life circumstance, we welcome you to worship. This religious community is a place where we come to learn more about being human. We're not here because we figured out life's questions or because we think we've got it right. We come here to learn more about being in a relationship together. How to listen, how to forgive, how to be vulnerable, how to create connection and compassion with and in one another, and how to serve a life larger than our own together. Special welcome to those joining us for the first time today. Please let us know in the live chat. Thank you for taking a chance and taking the time to join us for worship. If you are new or feel new, you are invited to complete the newcomer form that will be linked in the chat. If you're interested in becoming a member of Cedar Lane, please reach out to Nicole Causey. Her email is nkazi@cedarlane.org. Our pastoral visitors are an extension of the ministry team. They are available in the chat today to support you. We hope you will join us at the virtual coffee hour following the service. Please look for the Zoom link in the chat at the end of the service. After coffee hour, we invite you to our outdoor and physically distant ice cream social at 1 p.m. For everyone's safety, we ask that you RSVP using the link in the chat. Next week, we will not be having our regular worship service at 11 a.m., but instead be worshiping with River Road and UU Fairfax on Fairfax's platform at 10 a.m. Look for the Zoom link in this week's e-news and on our website. Finally, we are thrilled to be starting our 12th season of concerts at Cedar Lane. This concert series was started by our music director emeritus, Henry Segresci. The first concert of the season is on Saturday, October 3rd at 7 p.m. featuring Chris Matthews. Chris is an award-winning lyricist, songwriter, composer, and social justice activist. Her music is a blend of folk, jazz, blues, bluegrass, and funk. And she will be performing live from her home. Please note that this is not a pre-recorded concert and will be live streamed on our YouTube channel. And it will be followed by a Q&A with Chris herself. To find out more about Chris and the concert, please check out our website, cedarlane.org/music-concerts. We do rely upon the goodwill donations of our listeners to support these artists. To donate to concerts at Cedar Lane, please go to cedarlane.org/give and select concert series to donate. Please note that 100% of the donations go towards our artists' fees. We would love to see a large turnout and a strong show of support from Cedar Laners for the season's opener. Please stay tuned today for the postlude, where Chris will be singing Call Them In. This video was recorded in honor of the late John Lewis. Thank you. And now let's say hello to our neighbors in the chat.
Good morning. My name is Babs, and my pronouns are they, them. I am lighting my chalice in Bethesda, Maryland. As I read our chalice lighting words, you are invited to share in the chat where you are lighting your chalice from. We light this chalice for the in-between spaces, for the autumn season that teaches us the beauty of liminal space, for the splendor of the sunrise and the sunset as testimony to awe, for the moments between renewal and exhaustion, where deep work and healing can be done, for the ways we make space for confession and atonement and forgiveness, for those who live on the threshold, in the margins, and beyond the binary. May we find comfort and guidance within those in-between spaces.
Hi, my name is Alex.
And my name is Will.
And this month's theme is renewal.
Let's see what's in the wonder box that reminds us of renewal.
We have leaves. Leaves remind us of renewal because every fall the leaves fall from the trees and renew the soil of its nutrients.
In the spring, when leaves grow back, it renews the beauty of the earth.
Now, Reverend Katie is going to read a story about renewal and reimagining a new way.
The Other Side by Jacqueline Woodson. That summer, the fence that stretched through our town seemed bigger. We lived in a yellow house on one side of it. White people lived on the other, and Mama said, "Don't climb over that fence when you play." She said it wasn't safe. That summer, there was a girl who wore a pink sweater. Each morning, she climbed up on the fence and stared over at our side. Sometimes I stared back. She never sat on that fence with anybody. That girl didn't. Once, when we were jumping rope, she asked if she could play, and my friend Sandra said no, even without asking the rest of us. I don't know what I would have said. Maybe yes, maybe no. That summer, everyone and everything on the other side of that fence seemed far away. When I asked my mama why, she said, because that's the way things have always been. Sometimes when me and Mama went into town, I saw that girl with her mama. She looked sad sometimes, that girl did. "Don't stare," my mama said. "That's not polite." It rained a lot that summer. On rainy days, that girl sat on the fence in a raincoat. She'd let herself get all wet and acted like she didn't even care. Sometimes I saw her dancing around in puddles, splashing and laughing. Mama wouldn't let me go out in the rain. "That's why I bought you rainy day toys," my mama said. "You stay inside here where it's safe and dry." But every time it rained, I looked for that girl, and I always found her somewhere near the fence. Someplace in the middle of the summer, the rain stopped. When I walked outside, the grass was damp and the sun was already high up in the sky, and I stood there with my hands up in the air. I felt brave that day. I felt free. I got close to the fence, and that girl asked me for my name. "Clover," I said. "My name's Annie," she said. "Annie Paul. I live over yonder," she said. by where you see the laundry. That's my blouse hanging on the line." She smiled then. She had a pretty smile. And then I smiled, and we stood there looking at each other, smiling. "It's nice up on this fence," Annie said. "You can see all over." I ran my hand along the fence. I reached up and touched the top of it. "A fence like this was made for sitting on," Annie said. She looked at me sideways. "My mama said I shouldn't go on the other side," I said. "My mama says the same thing, but she never said nothing about sitting on it." "Neither did mine," I said. That summer, me and Annie sat together on that fence, and when Sandra and them looked at me funny, I just made them believe I didn't care. Some mornings my mama watched us. I waited for her to yell and tell me to get down from the fence before I break my neck or something. But she never did. "I see you made a new friend," she said one morning. And I nodded, and Mama smiled. That summer, me and Annie sat on the fence and watched the whole wide world around us. One day, Sandra and them were jumping rope near the fence, and we asked if we could play. "I don't care," Sandra said. And when we jumped, Sandra and me were partners the way we used to be. When we were too tired to jump anymore, we sat on the fence, all of us in a long line. "Someday, somebody's going to come along and knock this old fence down," Annie said. And I nodded. "Yeah," I said, "someday." Each Sunday, we give and receive an offering to support the promise and the practice of our Unitarian Universalist faith. This offering, it is a visible symbol of our commitment and our covenant to our faith, to our religious community, to each other, and to the world. It's our offering that reminds us that our congregation belongs to us, to the whole of us, as well as individually. It is a weekly embodiment of the idea that a group working together for justice and love is more exponentially powerful than any one individual. Today is an extra special offering because we are reaching across the world to share the plate with our partner congregation. And you're going to hear a little bit more about our partner congregation in just a moment when Eileen Kane and the Reverend Richard Nugent share some words with you. And then you'll get to hear from Reverend Shandor, who is the minister of our partner congregation, in just a moment. But first, I want to tell you about how you can give. You can text to donate at CLUUC and the amount to 73256. You can use that awesome QR code and you can PayPal, or you can go to cedarlane.org/give. And of course, you can always send a check. And now some words from Eileen and Reverend Richard.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Richard Nugent.
And I'm Eileen Kane.
4 years ago, our family, the Reverend Obby, and a dozen other people from the Easton and Cedar Lane congregations visited our international partner congregation, the Unitarian Church, located in the small town of Dicha San Martin. Our partner church was founded 421 years ago in 1599. Deacha San Martin is located in the Hungarian-speaking section of Romania. In fact, there were more than 65,000 Unitarians in 120 congregations throughout Transylvania. Our visit celebrated the 20th anniversary of the partnership between our two congregations. Cedar Lane has funded special projects and provided college scholarships to the young people of our partner church, as well as welcoming travelers from both here and there.
Transylvanian Unitarians celebrate their Thanksgiving next weekend. It's the harvest season in Transylvania, as it is here in the United States. Harvest time is a time of giving thanks for the gifts that are before us, including the gifts of family and friends. Today's Share the Plate collection is in essence a harvest of financial support, which will be shared with our overseas Unitarian family. We know that having a roof over our heads is so important, and the Deacha St. Martin Church is in need of serious roof repairs to its historic 400-year-old building. While they will receive a government grant, they still need to raise $2,000, which is a substantial sum for them. Like ourselves, they are struggling with the pandemic, and their community continues to see their jobs disappear and their lives disrupted as young people must leave to build their lives elsewhere. As we prepare to celebrate the 25th year of our partnership next year, please be as generous as you can to support our Unitarian family in Transylvania. Many thanks.
Nagy tiszteletű lelkészek, valamint mélyen tisztelt Cedar Lane-i gyülekezet. Testvérkapcsolatunk 24 éves múltjára gondolva, különleges és nagyszerű érzések kerítenek birtokukba. A testvérkapcsolati találkozások egyelőre még váratnak magukra. Világszerte a mindennapi élet nagyon megváltozott. De bizalommal mondjuk, az igaz ember hitből él. Sem a hitet, sem a reményt elveszíteni nem szabad. Isten jósága és segedelme mindig a teremtett világgal és a benne élő emberrel van. De mi nem a meghátrálás emberei vagyunk, hogy elvesszünk, hanem a hitéi, hogy életet nyerjünk. A hálaadás és szeretet járja át mindig szívünket és gondolatainkat. A közös célok és álmok mindig megvalósultak. Gyülekezetünk tagjai sokszor emlegetik a közös programokat és találkozásokat. Imáinkban, gondolatainkban mindig jelen vagytok. A tőletek kapott testvérkapcsolati zászló templomunkat díszíti. A közösen állított kopjafára gyakran felnézünk. A templomba bemenve ott van templomotok fényképe. Ez alkalommal is érzem, hogy a múlt elevenen él. A jelen kihívása erőt ad, és a jövő reménysége bíztat. Köszönöm, és köszönjük a szép emlékeket. A sok anyagi és szellemi támogatást. Bízom, hogy a jövő még rejteget számunkra kedves és kellemes alkalmakat. A Jóisten áldása, szeretete, megtartó ereje legyen és maradjon a mindenkori testvérkapcsolaton. Dicsőszent Márton, 2020. szeptemberi vasárnapon. Szentgyörgyi Sándor és a gyülekezet minden tagja. Közösen mondjuk. Egy az Isten.
Highly honored ministers, honored Cedar Lane congregation. Thinking about the history of our 24 years old twinninglings I have special and great feelings. Our twinning meetings are still to happen. Worldwide, everyday life has changed a lot. But with confidence we say, the righteous will live by faith. Neither the faith nor the hope should be lost. God's goodness and help is always with this world and with the people living in it. But we are not of those who shrink back to destruction, but of those who have faith to the preserving of the soul. Let the peace and love of Christ rejoice in your hearts and thoughts. Common goals and dreams have always come true. Members of our congregation often mention our collective programs and meetings. You are always present in our prayers and thoughts. The flag you gave us decorates our church. We often look up at the commonly set wooden headboard. Entering the church, there is a picture of your church. This time, I also feel the past is alive, the challenge of the present gives strength, and the hope of the future encourages us. Thank you for the beautiful memories, the financial and spiritual support. I have faith that the future still holds nice and pleasant occasions for us. May God's blessing, love, and sustaining power be and remain on our communion. On Sunday, September 2020, teach us St. Martin. Send your Dishandor and the entire congregation. Together we say, God is one.
Here's a poem by the American poet Marge Piercy, who has contributed much to Jewish liturgy. The word nigun used in this poem is a kind of music from the Jewish tradition, a driving pulse of music that immediately moves the heart and the hips. I've shortened the poem for this occasion. Coming up on September 3rd. White butterflies with single black finger paint eyes on their wings dart and settle, eddy and mate over the green tangle of vines in Labor Day morning steam. The year grinds into ripeness and rot, grapes darkening, pears yellowing, the first Virginia creeper twining crimson, the grasses dry straw to burn. I begin to reconsider my life. What is the yield of my impatience? What is the fruit of my resolve? I turn from my frantic white dance over the jungle of productivity, and slowly a nigun slides cold water down my throat. I rest on a leaf spotted red. The new year is a great door that stands across the evening, and Yom Kippur is the second door. Between them are song and silence. I will find there both ripeness and rot, what I have done and undone, what I must let go with the waning days and what I must take in. With the last tomatoes, we harvest the fruit of our lives.
Thank you, Reverend Abi, for sharing that beautiful poem in this time of Rosh Hashanah, this time where we are moving through what Marge Piercy says is song and silence. And also some of us are also navigating the fall equinox, or Mabon, it's a fire festival in the pagan wheel of the year. Many of us are yearning for some sense of equilibrium on an ever-tilting planet. But we do not journey alone. So let us center ourselves, inviting our minds, bodies, and spirits into this space, which is made sacred by our presence and the presence of the holy in which we live, move, breathe, and have our being. In this sanctuary of caring that connects us across space and time, we hold in our hearts those for whom parenting is a primary spiritual practice, those who are mourning a loss, those who live with grief or chronic pain, with illnesses seen and unseen, those with mental illness or addictions, those who have suffered abuse or injustice, those who've experienced a job loss or face financial insecurity. Within our Cedar Lane community, we also mourn together the loss of longtime member Margaret Harden. Our hearts are with Margaret's family. And our caring extends beyond Cedar Lane to those whose lives are lost or impacted by violence, systemic oppressions, climate change, droughts, wildfires, flooding, earthquakes, and all the calamities that seem to be hitting concurrently with the COVID-19 pandemic in our nation and the world. And we also remember Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I invite you to breathe with me in this time of mourning and memory, to breathe with me and hold in your heart yourself. And as you are holding an image of yourself in your mind or in your heart space, I invite you to think of all you have survived, to be in this moment, at this time. You have survived 100% of your worst days. And in the midst of this time of strife and struggle, you remain. And I invite you to think of your ancestors. Maybe some that you know, maybe some that you don't know, but who strove to live, who mentored, who gave wisdom, who made it possible for you to be here now. And I invite you to think of the generations before us that need our strength, that need our wisdom. So in this time of mourning and memory, I invite you to let the strength of the holy ancestors rise through you here and now as we answer the call that future generations are asking us to say yes to. Let us find hope and faith and strength in these precious moments that we have together. Faith and hope as acts of resistance, resilience, and a promising future to come when we say yes to the call.
People are not long division problems. Their resources almost never divide evenly into their concerns, which is how we end up with remainders of fear and anger and such tentative beauty, having only recently been liberated from the imposition of thousands of inapplicable shames. People do not imagine being messy and unresolved until their broken heart remains unmentionable. Eventually, point 3 repeating, awkwardly at first, and then with an intonation and rhythm meant to simulate being just fine. No problem. People are not long division problems. You cannot, should you meaning well, try this, fix, or solve them. Reminder, they almost never come out even. What you can do is be a welcome in a wounded and suspicious world. You can recognize the person as who they are. You can assume that without the gift of their humanity, even when it is complicated, none of the sum of us can arrive at the answer of who we are meant to be, collective and whole.
How could
When my oldest daughter was in 4th grade, she had an opportunity to be in an opera at school. This was part of a program where an actual opera singer came in and taught the kids about storytelling, and together, over the course of 2 weeks, they created an opera. An amazing opportunity, right? Of course, I signed the permission slip, and I was so excited to hear what happened when she got home from school that day. What was it like to be taught by an actual opera singer? Did she sing for them? Did they get to sing? Did they get any other schoolwork done, or was it like all opera all the time? The story they had picked to turn into an opera was the story that Reverend Katie just read to you, The Other Side by Jacqueline Woodson. I'm a bit of a children's book nerd and a former teacher, so I knew that book. I had used it as a teacher, and I found it, like you might have, to be a lovely story of redemption and resistance. The choice of that book just added to my own personal excitement. I felt satisfaction that I had made the right choice for my kids to go to a magnet Montessori school, a school that had a picture of W.E.B. Du Bois in the front hallway, a school that was majority Black and in which the principal and most of the teachers were African American women. I will admit I was feeling a bit comfortable in my wokeness and my choices. That is until my daughter came home in tears. Jacqueline Woodson's poetic narrative can easily be viewed through the lens of womanist theological writing. It centers the voices and experience of a woman or girl of color, and it is through her eyes that you experience the fence, the separation, the suspicion, the curiosity. Then the oppressive powers that be are subverted not through violence, not even through words, but through the embodied experience of play, pure joy. Theologian Monica Coleman describes a womanist as inspired by Alice Walker in 4 parts in her book, Ain't I a Womanist Too? To simplify her definition, along with being responsible, a Black feminist or a feminist of color, and a woman who loves other women, a womanist, she says, loves music, loves dance, loves the moon, loves the spirit, loves love and food and roundness and struggle, loves the folk, loves herself regardless. The narrator in The Other Side encapsulates that definition of womanism. And yet, there's a piece of the cultural narrative of segregation that remains unexamined. Of course, this is a children's book, so Woodson cannot be expected to wade too deeply into nuance. The period that the book was written, that it takes place in, a time period some of you may remember, was our American version of apartheid, the Jim Crow South. It was state-sanctioned and supported racism in which people had to fit into a box. You were Black or you were white. There was no space between in the eyes of the law. In fact, until 1967, it was actually illegal to get married in many states if you were of different races. 1967 is not that long ago. These racial categorizations and polarizations continue today. The media and politicians perpetuate this either-or thinking. You're either with us or you're against us. You're either pro-mask or anti-mask. It's either all lives matter or Black lives matter. You're either a Democrat or you're a Republican. You either watch CNN or you watch Fox News. You're either black or you're white. You're either a man or you're a woman. You're either a racist or an anti-racist. If only life were that simple. In 2001, scholars Jones and Akun identified either or thinking as one of the symptoms of white supremacy culture. And liberals, we fall into the habit of either or thinking just as much as conservative-minded people do. You either went to the march and you're politically active, or you stayed home and you're not. You either have children who go to RE, you either have children and go to RE, or you don't and you go to the main worship service. You're either an atheist or a theist. We are not immune. We are not better. So what do we do to move beyond this either or thinking? In her book, See No Stranger, Valerie Kaur takes on a moment in our nation's history of deep division. A moment when our collective either or thinking was ripe and raw, like a painful blister that had just popped. The days, the weeks, the months after September 11th, 2001. When hate crimes against brown people, people who looked Muslim, spiked. Ms. Kaur, as part of her graduate studies, bore witness to the suffering of the families impacted by these hate crimes. She shares her experiences in her book with gut-wrenching precision and heartbreaking prose, until you, the reader, are brought to a moment when either or thinking would be the simple, almost natural conclusion. And in that moment, she shares the story of her aunt and uncle. He was one of the victims of a hate crime following the attack on the Twin Towers on September 11, 2001. Balbir Sodhi, a Sikh business owner, and uncle and father and husband, was shot to death by a white man. His wife was in India, and Valerie Kaur traveled to India to visit with Joginder Kaur, her aunt, and to bear witness to her story. Ms. Kaur shares what Balbir Sodhi's widow says. Everyone tries to console me, she said in Punjabi, but I do not have one moment's peace. Everything is empty to me. She wiped away tears with a cloth. He was ready to come see me. He had a ticket to come here in November, but God did not give us even 2 months to meet each other. Ms. Kaur continues, I looked down at my list of questions and felt dumb. I put the list of questions down and wrapped my arms around her. My mother wrapped her arms around me, and we all wept together. That was the only thing we could offer, as if to say, you are grieving, but you do not grieve alone. All this time I had kept my body behind the camera, as if I was separate from the story. But I was always a part of my community. The pain in their body was mine. In our shared tears, I remembered something I had forgotten. Separateness is an illusion. The bowl breaks. We are a part of one another. I became aware of a sensation inside me, an ache that exceeded language. She must feel it too. I have just one question, I said. What would you like to tell the people of America? I was ready for bitterness. She stopped crying and looked at me. I can never forget the love they showed me. Love? I went there, she said. I can never forget their love. They did as much as they could for me. They gave me so much love. She was describing her husband's memorial. I had no friends or community there, but everyone gathered together. Hindu, Muslim, Christian, everyone was crying. 6 weren't the only ones who were crying. Everyone was crying. She wanted to thank America for loving her. In that moment, Valerie Kaur and her family lean into the antidote for either or thinking. Separateness is an illusion. My daughter's tears when she came home from school on that first day of the opera project rose from the same well as Valerie Kaur's. They were the tears of that space in between, that space where we know, where our bodies tell us separateness is an illusion. Perhaps my daughter lives into that knowing more than me. Perhaps she feels the pain of either or thinking even more than I. She is biracial, the very embodiment of both and. Her tears shocked me that day. Me, who had spent years practicing anti-racism, who had worked so hard to help her engage with a diverse community. Mommy, she said, liquid brimming along her lower eyelashes. We're doing a story where the white kids play on one side of the fence and the black kids play on the other side of the fence. Well, at this point, I'm confused because I know the story has a happy ending. Then, with hurt and confusion in every wrinkle in her troubled brow, she asks, "But I don't know where I would play." In that moment, the weight of the entire racial history of our country sat on my chest. In the eyes of our forefathers, in the eyes of our government, in the stories that we tell about each other and our nation, my baby girl was never meant to exist. She was not in the narrative. And yet, here she was, existing and thriving and creating art and living in community and doing the holy and sacred work of figuring out who she was. She occupies the liminal space that defies categorization. And there are places in each of us, in each of our identities, that also occupy that same liminal space. So as we close and settle into Valerie Kaur's words, separateness is an illusion, I invite you to think about the stories that we tell about ourselves and about each other. Who is left out? Who is forced to choose a side of the fence? And most importantly, how can we as a congregation minister to those who most vividly occupy the in-between spaces? That is the question I will spend this year working with you to answer as part of my final year internship. How can we explicitly meet the spiritual needs of biracial and multiracial families? And why should we? We, as Unitarian Universalists, are called to beloved community. As Reverend Teresa Soto pointed out in their poem that I read earlier, none of the sum of us can arrive at who we are meant to be, collective, whole, until we accept the humanity of each person, even when, and maybe especially when, it is complicated. Our beloved senior minister, Reverend Abi, put it this way in his 2009 Service of the Living Tradition sermon at UU General Assembly. The center of Unitarian Universalism lies outside itself, in the stranger, in difference rather than similarity. In our faith, the margins hold the center. Consider this poem by Reverend Leslie Takahashi. They teach us to read in black and white. Truth is this, the rest is false. You are whole or you are broken. Who you love is acceptable or not. Life tells its truth in many hues. We are taught to think in either or, to believe in the teachings of Jesus or Buddha, to believe in human potential or the power of a single will. I am broken or I am powerful. Life, although embraces multiple truths, speaks of both and of and. We are taught to see in absolutes, good versus evil, male versus female, old versus young, gay versus straight. Let us see the fractions, the spectrum, the margins. Let us open our hearts to the complexity of our worlds. Let us make our lives sanctuaries to nurture our many identities. The day is coming when all will know that the rainbow world is more gorgeous than the monochrome, that a river of identities can ebb and flow over the static, stubborn rocks in its course, that the margins hold the center. The margins hold the center. May it be so. Amen.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without peace, this world would die. Peace and freedom is our cry. We are building are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way.
Before we close, I'd like to thank the team who helped today make today's service possible. Reverend Abi and Reverend Katie, Babs Ricketts, our music team, Dr. Jasmine Lee, Jenny Lynn Moyer, and Rachel Moore. Thank you to the members of our AV team, Don Woodruff, Michael McCrickard, Todd Chernikoff, Michael Morse, and Barbara Thompson. Thank you to Rebecca Nachtrieb and the visual arts team for creating the beautiful in-gathering and service slides. And thank you to the membership and pastoral volunteers who have been active in the chat. We hope you'll stay on and join us for the postlude at the end of the service, and then the coffee hour after the service. We'd love for you to stay in touch. Once we go to virtual coffee hour after this, when we're all in the room, the host will assign you to a random breakout group so that we can have small group conversation. The URL for the coffee hour will be in the YouTube chat and on the screen after the postlude. And now our closing words. Prayer for Living Intention by Reverend Joe Cherry. If we have any hope of transforming the world and changing ourselves, we must be bold enough to move into our discomfort, brave enough to be clumsy there, loving enough to forgive ourselves and others. May we, as a people of faith, be granted the strength to be so bold, so brave, and so loving. Amen.
The battle lines are drawn, and once again, somebody's saying, wait, be patient. If they knew how long it would be before all people could truly hear freedom ring, I wonder which end of that moral arc would they choose. I wonder if more would have walked in his shoes. This is what revolution looks like. You gotta get in, then stay in this fight. You got to find a way to get in the way. Speak up, speak out every day. Freedom riders or letter writers, do what you can, just shine your light brighter. Somebody called him a saint among men, a founding father, an icon, a legend. Ordinary people with such extraordinary vision in a country so young, hard pressed on every single side but not crushed, saying in God, love and justice we trust. This is what revolution looks like. You gotta get in and then stay in this fight. You've got to find a way to get in the way. Speak up, speak out every day. Freedom riders or letter writers, do what you can, just shine your light brighter. Make good trouble every chance you get. Eyes on the prize, we're not finished yet. Don't tolerate injustice, my friends. Call them out, but then call them in. If you see something that's not right, not fair, stand up and say we can do better. He said, I may not be with you when we reach the other side. So let the power of love everlasting be your guide. 'Cause this is what revolution looks like. You gotta get in, then stay in this fight. This is what revolution looks like. You gotta get in, then stay in this fight. You got to find a way to get in the way. Speak up, speak out every day. Freedom riders or letter writers, do what you can, just shine your light brighter. Make good trouble every chance you get. Eyes on the prize, we're not finished yet. Don't tolerate injustice, my friends. Call them out, but then call them in, call them in. Find a way to get in the way. Speak up, speak out every day. Make good trouble every chance you get. Make good trouble